there, Holly Schindler here, author, illustrator, and writing teacher. And I am thrilled to bring you another installment of the I Have an Idea for a Novel, Now What? Writing series, which is aimed at helping you get through that first draft of your book. So far in this series, we've looked at some pretty important aspects of writing already. We've looked at how to write a really strong, compelling scene. We've looked at why talent is a myth. And last time we looked at what the method is going to be from here on out, right? I gave you an overview of how I'm going to progress through the rest of this series, a little bit, kind of a glimpse into my madness, the method of my madness here. And really what I'm doing is sharing with you my own approach to drafting a novel, which is really a pantser plotter hybrid. My method, I think, combines the best of both those worlds. So this week, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of plotting or outlining your book. And I don't want you to freak out about those terms. This is not something you should be intimidated by at all. This is a really fun stage of the game. This is brainstorming. This is a way to get your creative juices flowing. And the good part is at the end of this, you are going to have the most important part of your book in hand. You're going to know your book's main problem, which I also will refer to throughout the series as the macro goal of your book. Now, the first thing I want to do here is just get rid of these preconceived notions I am sure you have in your mind right now when I use the words outline and plot. Now, I'm sure when I use the word outline, the first thing that came to your mind were those exercises we all had to do in school, right? Where we were listing the main points of, say, an article or maybe a chapter in a textbook. And, they had headers and subheaders and Roman numerals and capital letters and lowercase letters. And no, it's not that. It is nothing that formal. Don't worry about it. That is not what I mean when I use the word outline. Now, while we're at it, we have got to get rid of the notion I'm sure you have in your mind right now when I use the word plot. When I say we're going to plot our novel, I'm sure you immediately thought of a chronological list of events, right? That's what most first-time plotters do. They figure out just what's going to happen in their book, page 1 to the last page. My hero wakes up, he meets a mysterious stranger, something bad happens, a decision has to be made. And, that's okay. But what you wind up with is really just a series of events. And after each one, you ask the same question, which is just what happens now? What's going to happen next, right? Now, great novels are not just a series of interesting events. They are a unified story that all relates back to the main central problem of the book, right? That macro goal of the book. Everything relates back to it. That's what gives your novel meaning. Okay, well, that sounds great. But how do we do that? How do we make sure that everything relates back to this ever important, central problem or macro goal? We're going to build this macro goal right here, right now. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of actually building that macro goal, I wanted to reiterate what plotting actually is so that you have the right picture in your head when we move forward. Okay, so when I say we're going to plot the novel, we are going to wind up in the end with that chronological list of events. But what we do, we don't start there. We don't start with chapter 1 and brainstorm chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. What we do is we start with the large idea of what this book is about, that main story problem or macro goal. We start there. We start with that problem. Then we begin to break the book into smaller chunks. Once we know that, we can break it into the turning points. We can begin to brainstorm what our turning points are. We can break it into acts. we can break it into chapters or scenes. So we start big and we just keep breaking it down smaller and smaller and smaller till we get to individual chapters or scenes that we can string together chronologically. And by doing it that way, by starting with that macro goal and breaking it down increasingly smaller, then we're beginning to get that picture of a meaningful book, not just a sequence of events. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we find this big umbrella, this big giant problem, this macro goal of the book that we're then going to begin to break into smaller chunks? How do we find this? Okay, I think the best way to find your book's macro goal or central story problem is through your main character's backstory. Now, what I'm about to tell you about backstory is in no way unique to me. There are all kinds of writing teachers online that talk about character backstory and how important it is to the book as a whole. K.M. Weiland, John Truby, all these instructors that we've all learned from, including me. I've learned from these people as well. And, they all teach us about character backstory in the same way I'm going to talk about it. For the most part, these writing instructors talk about backstory and plot as two entities that exist side by side, right? They run alongside each other within the book and they feed off of each other. I take it a little bit farther than that. I take it one step farther and say you can actually find your book's macro goal or central story problem through backstory. Okay, so what is backstory? Okay, for our purposes, your main character's backstory is an event that happened in their past that was deeply painful. It doesn't have to be something that happened in their childhood, right? I mean, it could be. It could be something that happened in their formative years. Then again, it could be something that happened to them last year. Whatever it was, it affected them deeply and it was painful, okay? And from that wound, some writing instructors refer to this painful event as the wound. Some will refer to it as a ghost. It's just however it makes better sense to you. In either way, it's just something that has continued to affect them, right? So if you think of it as a wound, it's something that happened in the past that still hurts them. It has never healed, it still hurts them. If you think of it as a ghost, this event in their past, then it's something that continues to haunt them. Okay, so they have a painful event in their past that continues to have an impact on them. Now, they have built up a self-protective lie around this painful experience, around the wound, around the ghost, that is aimed at keeping that pain from ever being felt again, right? That's what they want to happen. Your main character wants to make sure they will never be in that situation again. And a classic example of this is, your main character has endured a heartbreak and has decided, if I never get close to another human being again, I will never feel this pain again. I'm just going to go it alone. I'm going to be a total loner on my own. I don't need anyone in my life. Then I can't get hurt, right? And we all know that doesn't work, right? That all that does is lead to more misery, a different kind of misery, because now you don't have any love in your life. You don't have any friendship in your life. You don't have any companionship because you don't have another human being to share your life with. That is not a fulfilled life. It's not a happy life. So your main character has a self-protective lie that is keeping them basically from living a fulfilled life or an enjoyable life or a happy life, okay? And they need to get rid of this lie. But how do they do that, right? Human beings do not change their lives or their belief about the world or how they live by sitting on the couch and binge watching Netflix all weekend. That does not happen. The way you change your mind and the way you change your life is by getting out in the world and interacting with it, having an adventure, right? That is your book's macro goal. Your book's central story problem, your macro goal, is the adventure that your character embarks on in order to get rid of their self-protective lie. Okay, now's the fun part. Now we get to start brainstorming. And what we were going to start with is your main character's wound. Okay, so what I want you to start with is, what are some possible painful events that happen to your main character that they would still be affected by, right? What are some sources of the wound, right? You're looking for the painful event. And what we're doing here is just list making. Just write a list. Possible things that happen to your main character that were painful. And don't just stop at 5, right? Don't stop at 10. Go for 20. Go for 30. The thing about brainstorming is it is never the first items on your list that are the most interesting. It's the items way down that list that become the interesting ones that you run with. So do not stop at 5, do not stop at 10. Don't even think that you have to accomplish this in one sitting, just in one brainstorming session. No, you need to come up with a wound, a painful experience for your main character, and brainstorm, 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 brainstorm. You know what's next. Now you're going to brainstorm the self protective lie. Once you have decided on your wound, the painful event, now you need to brainstorm the same way. Brainstorm an enormous list, 20, 30 items, and do it multiple times. And now to round things out, now you've got the wound in hand, the self protective lie in hand. Now you're going to brainstorm what the adventure is that is going to force your main character to finally address this self protective lie and change their ways. For example, maybe you've got a mystery that has something to do with a missing father, right? And your detective is actually having to deal finally in their adult life with the lifelong ramifications of an absentee father in their own life, right? That's one possibility. Or maybe you've got a fantasy, and the hero that is embarking on the event has never believed that they were worthy, right? They didn't believe in themselves. They never thought they were smart enough or strong enough, and now they have to embark on a journey, and in order to be successful in this journey, they're going to have to dig deep and find some of that, that courage and that belief in self. And those are just a couple of real quick examples of some adventures that would force your main character to deal with whatever is holding them back in their life. Now that all sounds fine and good, but what if you actually have an idea for a plot and you don't have a character? Well, this still works, right? Just start with your plot, start with your central storyline, and reverse engineer. Okay, this is the plot, this is the story I want to tell. Who should be telling it? Come up with a main character who has a wound and a self-protective lie that could in fact be addressed by this plot line. Now, one thing I do when I am doing this brainstorming session is I'll go back and forth between these pieces, right? I'll brainstorm a main character's wound. I will brainstorm the self-protective lie. I will brainstorm the possible plot or central storyline or macro goal that would force my main character to address their issues. And then I'll work backward. I'll start, I'll pretend I'm starting with the plot and go backward and find out, is this the strongest character for this storyline? Can I come up with, now that I have this plot line in hand, can I come up with a better wound, a better self-protective lie? And I'll move back and forth between those pieces multiple times. Like I said, it's never the first idea that turns out to be the strongest. It's always the one you have after you have been brainstorming for an extended period of time. So have fun with this. This is one of my most favorite parts of the drafting process, are these brainstorming sessions, because I can see how these pieces begin to connect together and how it's going to drive my novel from here on out. So this is such a fun place to be at this stage. Have a great time with this. Brainstorm those wounds, brainstorm the self-protective lies, brainstorm those central storyline problems and macro goals. brain, just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and come up with the best possible solution for all of those issues. I hope this is helpful. If it is, feel free to subscribe for more writing advice. If you have any questions about anything I covered this week, just shoot them to me in the comments. I will be happy to help further. Next week, we're going to hit how our character backstory and our central storyline or macro goal will actually help us find the theme of our novel. Okay, thanks for joining me for yet another I Have an Idea for a Novel, Now What episode, and I will catch you next time. Go write something.